Hey guys, how's it going? So welcome back. I know it's March, but you know what? It's never too late to get started. So here in this video, I'm going to talk about my reading plans, not specifically for 2026 because you'll see in a minute, but I have a big reading project that I'm going to reignite that will take probably a decade. Honestly, yeah, probably. So here's the thing. When January rolled around and everyone was making their what I'm going to read in 2026, all the books I read in 2025 videos, blah, 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 I came to this realization that I could not name most of the books I read in 2025. And I couldn't really tell you how many I read either off the top of my head. My goals in 2025 were to read my bigger books. So I started the year with the bigger books. I read Darkly. I read, I think I started reading The Institute. Dude, I can't even see what I mean. So, I spoke about it in my last video with my reading tracking system, but last year was a nightmare and I never want it to happen again. But I came to, it taught me a few things. I started reading big books, and then sometime during the year, I had this opportunity because I was a student to have this student discount on an audiobook app called BookBeat. By the way, I totally recommend it. So I read that, or I listened to that for a few months, and then Garbagus came around, and then so I stopped the subscription to BookBeat, and then I read a few other books, and I haven't read anything since December 10th or so, probably. And yeah, it's March 2026. So my apologies, first of all, to Gareth and Dave, because I went on their live in January and said I was going to start reading Stillicide, which, don't be fooled by the bookmark. I started reading the first chapter, but then I got to my bus stop and kind of put it down, so I don't think it really counts. I do have a long car ride today, so I think I'm going to read that. I'm not the one driving, don't worry. So all that to say, I did realize, first of all, that about my reading tracker, which if you haven't seen the video, I'll link it here or whatever in the description. But I also realized that since I'm going to do a reset with my reading, I think I want to reignite a reading project that I started before I even started my YouTube channel. And I kind of want to bring back to the forefront. The story goes that I started this project in 2018, and so I saw this blog post by Anne Morgan, a BBC journalist, and she had this blog website about, it's called Reading the World or Reading Around the World. I'll link it below as well. And essentially the point is to read one book whose author is from every country in the world, which I thought was super cool. You could do a lot of different variations of this, like read a book from every century, or, read a book that takes place in every country in the world, which is not necessarily the same thing. But anyway, and so I thought that was a really cool project, and so I started doing it, and here's the mistake I made. My downfall was trying to prioritize diversity of country of origin rather than also like really making sure that I would enjoy the plot long term. Are you like me where sometimes you're in a bookstore or someone is telling you about a book or something and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds fun, and then 2 months pass and you're like, yeah, no. Well, I had a little bit of a crash out because I realized, oh, I bought a lot of books that I don't want to read. So I ended up selling quite a few, donating some, etc. And I decided I'm going to just buy books that I want to read, and if it happens to be from a different country, then I'm going to include it in the project. It kind of went out the crapshoot, but we're back. We're back. Here, if you want to see what it looked like, I just made a chart with every country, and then I just wrote the corresponding book. Right, so there's, 195, give or take a few countries in the world, so... And the problem is, I had some books that were written a really long time ago, and so the country doesn't exist anymore, or the country didn't exist at the time. Let me tell you all the books that are in here, and you'll understand what I mean by there's no, you'll see what I mean. So the first one I have is from Algeria, and it's The Creation of Time and The Creation of the World and Time by St. Augustine. This was a 100-page or so philosophy book. It was interesting because St. Augustine is a religious person, but he tried to incorporate like a balance of religion and science, which was interesting. Then from Austria, I have The Venus in Furs by Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. This I think I read for Garb August. It was interesting. It was cool at the time. I wouldn't reread it though. Next from Canada, this one I really loved. Jeu Blanc by Richard Wagamez in French, or Indian Horse in English. I loved this book and I would totally recommend it. It's about this Ojibwe Native American who gets stolen from his tribe at a very young age and put into one of those Catholic orphanages. And so this is his life story. It's fictional, but it's his life story of growing up, coming to terms with the horrors that were done to him in the orphanage and loss of identity. And it's interesting because Indian Horse doesn't really give anything away, but Jeu Blanc in literally translated means white game. And it's because he gets through his trauma by playing hockey. And it's really good. I loved it. It's like a contemporary coming of age type of story. Next, from China, I read Chinese Cinderella by Adeline Yen Ma. This is a memoir of her growing up in China as the only daughter in the family. And I think this was in the 50s, I want to say. I had to read it in junior high for school reading, but I loved it so much that I reread it. Then from Egypt, we have Voices from the Other World by Naguib Mahfouz. And now this is a prime example because I heard Naguib Mahfouz was a really good Egyptian writer, and I'm sure he is. However, I clearly had not internalized at the time that I'm not a huge fan of short stories. And yeah, I think I just got it because I was like, oh, a prominent author, a prominent Egyptian author, let me just get that. And the other thing is I do, and still to this day, I try to prioritize buying books in store rather than online, which by definition does exclude a lot of possibilities. Not that I never do buy books online, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying if given the choice, and so I think that was probably, I was on a shopping trip in a bookstore and I just saw that and I was like, oh, I can't find any authors from Egypt or something. Then from Finland, we have Purge by Sophie Oksanen. I've spoken about this book so dang much and I will never stop talking about it. It's amazing. Amazing. Then we have La Peste, or The Pest by Albert Camus from France. Also an incredible book, cannot recommend enough. Then from Germany, we have Perfume by Patrick Suskind. Also a really cool serial killer book. I loved it. It was very creative. And then from Greece, we have The Banquet by Plato, also a philosophy book. I rarely read those. Sometimes I enjoy them, but The Banquet by Plato was so, I couldn't keep up with the information. So I think for the ego as a reader, I like to know that I read it, but realistically, I couldn't tell you anything about it. Then from Indonesia, we have L'Homme Tigre by Eka Kurniawan. I don't know what the title is in English officially, but it translates to the man tiger. It was fine. Also one of those books that I just got. Then from Iran, we have Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. Now this one is incredible. It's a graphic novel of her growing up as a woman in Iran. Amazing. Why did I give you the story of some books and not the other? Then from Ireland, we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. Needs no introduction. Loved it. See, so this project wasn't a total fail. I think I'm just gonna maybe just include the books that I liked and then, eliminate the others and start over. We'll see. Then from Italy, we have Si c'est un homme by Primo Levi, an incredible memoir which deserves to be spoken about, especially nowadays, unfortunately. Then from Japan, we have As I Crossed a Bridge of Dreams by Lady Sarashina. This is also this is like a diary. It's nonfiction. So I'm surprised at how much nonfiction I read. This was written in the 11th century, I believe, in Japan, and it's her telling, well, it's her writing about her travels. She's a fairly rich woman, and they're traveling from one town in Japan to another. I forget which ones, but it's gorgeous. She describes the problems they had, the people they met, just the landscape around them. And I think I read somewhere, maybe on Goodreads or something, that this is required reading in schools in Japan. Japanese literature classic. Okay, then from South Korea, we have The Hole by Hye Young Pyuk. Okay, I buddy read that with Mr. Morningstar, who's not on BookTube anymore at all. But we disliked it so much that we never even spoke about it. It had great potential, but it was not good. Anyway, then from Mauritania, we have The Desert and the Drum by Mbarekul Berouk. And something I did not expect to like. It's like a contemporary type of story where this girl in a Bedouin tribe in Mauritania, I think she gets raped or something and becomes pregnant. But because she's not married, it's like problematic. It's her fault, obviously, you know. And so she decides that she's been so wronged by her tribe and she is so hurt that she steals the tribal drum, which is a big deal, and runs away. And it's her trying to find herself and trying to find a place to live and like to restart her life. And it's really good. Then from New Zealand, we have Mr. Pip by Lloyd Jones. This was something I had to read in high school, and I liked it so much that I reread it. The main character, she's probably 15 years old, I think, or so, or like a young teenager on an island in the Pacific where there's a civil war. And this English guy comes as a volunteer to be a teacher on the island, and he makes the students read Mr. Pip to learn English. Or not Mr. Pip, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And so the girl who is the main character is talking about how she sees similarities between herself and Pip, amongst many other things. But it's really cool to read books like that where there's a book inside of another book. So you don't have to have read Great Expectations to appreciate this book, but it does give it an extra layer of dimension, which is much appreciated. Then from Nigeria, we have My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is pretty popular on BookTube, I think. From Oman, we have Celestial Bodies by Joka Alarti. Okay, another book I have no recollection of because I really didn't enjoy it. Also, it was 2020 when I read it, so let's be for real. It's probably the pandemic, not the book itself. I think I just got it because my name is in the title. And the book cover is pretty cool. Okay, and then Pakistan, we have Shadows of the Pomegranate Tree by Tariq Ali. Same story. I got it because I couldn't find anyone else from Pakistan. Then from Russia, Le Club des Tueurs des Lettres, or by Sigismund Khrenovsky, or the Letter Killer Club. This is about a group of people, a book club basically, and they talk about various books, and they kind of deconstruct the story by talking about, oh, what do you think would have happened if so-and-so did that? So it's a really cool, I don't know if it counts as philosophy, but I think it would be under that category in a bookstore. The only problem with this book that I found is that there is a prerequisite to appreciate this book that you have read or are really familiar with the books that they discuss in this book. And they talk about 5 books total. I can't remember which ones. The only one I remember is Romeo and Juliet. But otherwise, it was a really interesting concept. If I had read the books, I think I would have really loved this one. Okay, then we have Senegal, Une si longue lettre by Mariam Abba, or So Long a Letter. This is a classic for women in fiction. I love this. Well, it's written in a letter format, and it's about a woman who writes a bunch of letters to a former friend, and she's talking about, this is like, imagine you're writing a bunch of letters to your friend from 20, 30 years ago, and you're telling her about your life, like what your dreams were, how it ended up turning out, what society expects of you as a woman, and what you did, and it's so good. It's so good. So then we have Le Petit Traité de l'Abandon by Alexandre Jolien from Switzerland. This was a memoir It was interesting. I don't think it's been translated to English though. And then finally, so we have Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I thought it was good, but one problem I had with it, which I hear is very common with Agatha Christie books, is that she introduces all the characters so quickly. Just for that, I didn't enjoy it as much, but I do like a good whodunit. And then Johnny Got His Gun from the US by Dalton Trumbo. I loved it. That book is incredible. So that's it. It's what, like 20 books or so? I think I'm going to keep the ones I really liked, like I said, and just restart with the other ones. Let me know what we should do. Should we do like an Excel spreadsheet like what Michelle has, or should I have an ongoing series, like a dedicated book review series, or I don't know. What would you like? Do you think this is a cool project? Would you partake in it? Overall, just to get back to my actual reading plans, one thing I've had a bit of a struggle with on booktube is that there are so many reading projects going on booktube, which is a good thing because then there's a little bit of everything for everyone, but it gets really overwhelming because it's writing this line between I want to participate in this community, but also I just want to read the books that I want to read. And sometimes those two overlap. Most of the time, those two do not overlap, in my experience anyway. So I think I've just decided that I'm just going to do Garb August and then Horror Mayhem, which I always have four on my shelves anyway. And maybe I want to do buddy reads too this year. Maybe if some other reading project comes up for which I have the books, I think I'm just gonna buy books I want to read, and then if, you know, do some diversity check, but mostly focus on the plot because it was my downfall last time. So that's that. What am I reading right now? So like I said, I promise I'm gonna start this book today. Dave, Olive, Gareth, I promise I'm starting this book today. Anyone who subscribed to my channel. See, if you've seen my last video with my reading tracker, I figured my card, if I'm going to take any notes, is actually a pretty good bookmark. So there you go. That, and then the next book I want to read, I bought a couple days ago, and I'm so excited to read it. It's the Gisèle Pericault. If you've been following news, she is the Mazon trial survivor. She was sexually assaulted by her husband, who was pimping her out. Okay, so the trial condemned 53 men, but during the investigation, they found evidence of over 80 men, or 90 maybe. So if anyone says it was 53 men, no, it's 53 men in prison. It was 90 or so, 80, 90 men. Okay, so, but anyway, so she released her book called Et la joie de vivre, which translates to And the Joy of Life. And she talks about finding out what happened to her and the trials, but most importantly, finding out, or learning to live, basically, not giving up on life. And her daughter, Caroline Darion, was also a survivor of those crimes. And she wrote a book too, if you're interested. I forget what it's called, but they actually both have a very different outlook on the trial. Well, not outlook, but way of coping with what happened, which I found interesting. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!